Alright, so with tonight's video, I've decided to just say who I think is going to make the NASCAR playoffs heading into the 2025 season, as we are starting the new season off in a week with the Daytona 500. Now, the way the NASCAR playoffs work is that you have 16 drivers that make it in, then each round they get eliminated, and I will not be making those predictions today on how far every driver makes it. I will just be making my predictions on who makes it in general, due to just the randomness that can come from the NASCAR playoff system. I don't see any reason why Kyle Larson, why Chase Elliott, William Byron, or Alex Bowman, the Hendrick drivers, shouldn't make the playoffs. They're all consistent. The equipment's really good. They're all consistent top 5, top 10 drivers. No reason for them to not make it. The same goes for all the Gibbs drivers, although a little shakier there. You're adding in an element of Chase Briscoe, who is young and new to the team, replacing the retired Martin Truex Jr. So I feel like that could throw a wrench into it. Denny Hamlin is lacking sponsorship, and he's getting up in age. He's like 41 or 44. I just checked, he's 44 years old. He's getting up there in age. This could be his last chance to really contend for the title. Ty Gibbs, if he continues like he did at the end of the season, where he just kind of went on an absolute downhill slump, he might not make it. But Christopher Bell's been the most consistent one. But knowing the equipment and knowing how well that team started off the year, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't make it. Now, with those first 8 out of the way, I think we've now been in like a weirder area where you can kind of just lock in some drivers based off of prior experience, like a Ryan Blaney, who is coming off of a championship in 2023 and a runner-up in 2024. Man is consistent. He's made it to the Final Four almost every year. I see him making a really deep run at the title. Ross Chastain missed out due to the win in your in format. I don't see a reason why he shouldn't make it this year. He won a race late in the season, just too late to qualify for the playoffs, but I do think with that, they're going to come out this season with a vengeance, especially with that Trackhouse team expanding to 3 full-time cars. I don't see any reason why the new resources put into this team won't be enough to stop them. Another driver that I think is a lock, make it to our 11th lock, and I believe is Tyler Reddick. Reddick is our regular season points champion from last season. He made it to the Final Four for the first time in the 2024 season, marking off a really consistent year for him. I don't see a reason why he shouldn't be able to make it back in the playoffs, even with the randomness that comes with just this format in general. Now, with these final 5 spots, we're kind of getting into weird territory where this is anywhere from like 12th to 25th on a weekly basis, just kind of changes, and you have so many drivers who could make it and couldn't make it, specifically with the win in your in format, like road course right aces like Shane Van Gisbergen and AJ Allmendinger could just eke out a win randomly in a week and they can make it in. But I don't have any of those drivers on here. Instead, we're going with a more traditional Chris Buescher pick. While he, like Chastain, did miss the regular season or miss the playoffs due to the win in your in format, I don't see a reason why he should miss again this year, especially with how consistent that team just is in general. They were 8th in points at the time of the point reset, so without the system, he would have easily made it in. Now, in the case of Kyle Busch, I think Kyle Busch will make the playoffs this year after coming off an abysmal season with Richard Childress Racing, without even making the top 16 in points in general. They found speed at the end of the season, and that gives me promise for this team and gives me hope for the former Cup's 2-time Cup Series champion to make it back into the playoffs again, although I don't know if it'll be on points or with a win, just because of how this team is. Now, going to Daniel Suarez. Suarez is a very interesting case on why he should or shouldn't miss the playoffs. He made the playoffs due to mainly a win in Atlanta and way early in the season, which I believe kind of set their season up to be an okay top 15 season, which is around where that car should be running. Now, with that, though, you have to factor in he would not have made playoffs without that Atlanta win, but near the end of this middle of season summer, they found some kind of speed. He was running consistently top 7, top 10 most race weekends, and his worst race to date during that stretch was during that Bristol race where it's impossible to pass, and he came like 33rd after starting 32nd. That team is growing. Trackhouse is a growing team, but they are a top 15 team at best on most weekends, and I believe he's driving the car where it is and I think he will make the playoffs off of a win in Atlanta again. Bubba Wallace is in the same situation that Ross Chastain and Chris Buescher were in last season, where he just couldn't make it in on points of the amount of winners that made it in instead. I do think Bubba Wallace makes it in this year. Do I believe it is off of a win? Absolutely not. That team does not start the season off well, but roughly around the June time, they figure out something with that team, and they run consistently better. I do think the changing of a crew chief does help that team out a lot more than anyone thinks they will, and I think Bubba Wallace locks up a spot in the playoffs. Right at this final spot, it was kind of hard for me to choose. I was between two different drivers for this spot. I was between Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano. I do think RFK Racing in general is a better team than they've been most years. I do think Brad Keselowski is still a good driver. However, I think Joey Logano makes the playoffs over him off of one factor, that Joey Logano is just luckier than that team is. While people are going to argue that this is the odd year Logano curse, which I almost fell for too. The odd year Logano curse is that every odd year Joey Logano has a bad year. I don't think it repeats. I think he has a better statistical season than last season, but he doesn't win the championship like he did. And those are my 2025 NASCAR playoff predictions. I'll put up a nice fun graphic right here showing what they all are. And if you guys have any differences of opinion on them, feel free to leave them in the comments, and y'all have a great rest of your night.